Good evening, dear viewers. Welcome back to the Diplomatic Talk program. In this episode, we are going to talk about the Aral Sea Trust Fund and learn about the experience of a representative that operates in the system. The drying up of the Aral Sea is one of the greatest man-made disasters that follow crosses national borders to affect millions living in the region and ever involving. The Aral Sea crisis has led to the land degradation and desertification, a shortage of drinking water, malnutrition, deterioration of health and quality of life indicators for local population. The epicenter of the crisis is in the Republic of Karakalpakstan. The multi-partner Human Security Trust Fund for the Aral Sea region in Uzbekistan is the mechanism that focuses on multi-sector and people-centered responses. So let's explore some facts about the fund. The Aral Sea Trust Fund, officially known as the Multi-Partner Human Security Trust Fund for the Aral Sea region, operates under the United Nations umbrella. It aims to address the severe human and environmental challenges caused by the Aral Sea's shrinking. The fund focuses on enhancing human security by tackling issues such as poverty, unemployment, access to clean water, and health challenges in the affected regions. It aligns with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially those related to environmental sustainability and community well-being. The Trust Fund supports innovative projects like planting drought-resistant vegetation in areas affected by desertification, improving agricultural techniques, and creating income-generating opportunities for local communities. Countries like Japan, Norway, South Korea, and Uzbekistan have contributed to the Trust Fund, demonstrating a global commitment to mitigating the impact of the Aral Sea disaster. Regional organizations and international institutions also play a critical role in its success. The fund supports programs to improve healthcare access, address diseases linked to environmental degradation, and provide better educational opportunities. For instance, initiatives include mobile healthcare units and training programs to help residents adapt to the changing environment and economy. The Multi-Partner Human Security Trust Fund for the Aral Sea region in Uzbekistan has been actively implementing various projects to address the environmental and socio-economic challenges in the Aral Sea region. For instance, the paper on green policy recommendations. In collaboration with the Global Green Growth Institute, the fund developed a white paper outlining policy recommendations to tackle climate change challenges and enhance the well-being of the Aral Sea region's inhabitants. The document emphasizes rehabilitation of water management systems, promotion of climate-smart agricultural practices, sustainable landscape and forest management, adaptation of legislative frameworks for climate resilience. Another project is new healthcare financing model. With support from the World Health Organization, Uzbekistan introduced a new model for financing and providing medical services in 15 primary healthcare institutions across 3 pilot districts in Karakalpakstan. Efforts to rehabilitate the desertified areas of the Aral Sea region include projects like My Garden in the Aral Sea, which aims to plant 1 million trees to combat desertification and improve air quality. Additionally, the European Union committed to planting 27,000 trees as a gift from its member states to Uzbekistan. The United States Agency for International Development allocated approximately $1.6 million to counter the adverse effects of desertification in the Aral Sea region. This funding aims to improve the air quality and living conditions by supporting reforestation and other environmental restoration activities. Dear viewers, you are watching Diplomatic Talk program, and today with us our special guest, Mrs. Rushan, currently serving as a Development Coordinator Officer for Partnerships and Finance. Hello.
Good morning, Gulbakor, and thank you for inviting me to be here and joining you in this talk. Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing for the interview. How long you've been working for the UN?
How long have I been working for the UN? So my career within the UN actually started back in 2011. I started as an Associate Environmental Affairs Officer at the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. I know it's long. It's called UNESCAP, and its office is in Bangkok. And then after that, I assumed another post also with UNESCAP and as an environmental affairs officer. And I took time off between that because I finished my PhD at the University of Hawaii. And after that, I returned working on a project on climate change within the United Arab Emirates, helping the ministry on climate change issues, specifically on climate change risk assessment. And the contract was processed by UNOPS, which is another UN agency.
As a child?
Yeah, and then just here I am now in Uzbekistan.
But as a child, have you thought like one day you will become working in the UN and then
As a child, my mother wanted me to be a nurse when I was a kid. That's what she was, she said, maybe you become a nurse and maybe eventually if you want to become a doctor, you can become a doctor. However, when I was in high school, I met our former president who was an economist at that time. And I said, I want to study economics because our former president was an economist. So I studied economics and did not know really exactly what I will be doing after. But then my advisor at the university, she does several kinds of work within the United Nations at that time, mainly in the area of environmental economics. And she got me involved in some of her projects. And that's basically, that opened my eyes on the work that the United Nations do. And I had some friends from college who started as UN volunteers. So it also started opening my eyes on like what the UN does. So from that point forward, later on, not as a child, but later on, I had interest on doing some work within the United Nations.
So you started as a volunteer?
No, I did not actually start as a volunteer. I started as an environmental affairs officer. But prior to the United Nations, so there's a history. Prior to the United Nations, I worked for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. It's like the equivalent of the European Union, but with 10 ASEAN countries. So I work for the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, again, mainly on environmental issues. And basically, it's a small UN, 10 countries, and we work with governments. So from there, I moved to the United Nations. So because of that experience, I was able to build, to understand how to work with countries, with intergovernmental processes. Then I work for the United Nations in Bangkok.
What kind of challenges have you faced during your career?
During my entire career, there are several different challenges that I think I would face. I would not call it everything as smooth sailing, but some of the key areas that I've noticed throughout my career is that when you're trying to communicate the work that we do within the United Nations and how we really each one of us as members of the United Nations, as staff and personnel of the United Nations, we really strive to ensure that we reach people who are left behind through the work that we do. And sometimes it's not understood by many, and that's a challenge to communicate.
How do they understand this?
Because sometimes, like for example, some people would understand that the work of the United Nations is about peace, bringing peace. But for example, here in Uzbekistan, it's a very, very peaceful country. We don't have peacekeeping forces here. What we do here in Uzbekistan is helping the government strengthen its policies, for example, so it can better help its people, the Uzbek population. But some people, they think that, oh, you're from the United Nations, you should stop, conflict in some countries in the world. And that's true, we do that. But here, they think that that's the kind of work that we do. And some people don't understand why we are here when we should be helping, feeding kids, for example, in countries like in some countries in Africa. So that's a little bit of a challenge for us to communicate that, but we are working on that for people to really understand the work that we do within the UN.
Those are more professional challenges that you have faced. What about the personal?
Well, it's when you work for the United Nations. For example, prior to coming here, my husband was also working. He has his own career, of course, and he doesn't work for the UN. We have to be apart because he has to work. He's based in the United States at that time, and he has to work there. So we were apart from my family for a period, and some of my colleagues within the United Nations, there are places where you cannot take family because of the conflict within the regions or the countries, and they have to be apart from their family, leaving their loved ones somewhere while they are working, serving the country, serving the people of the countries where they are in. So that's like a personal challenge that I can, share.
And how do you tackle with this challenge?
You have to stay very professional, that you have to stay focused on the work that you need to do. But the organization, they value well-being, especially health and mental well-being of the staff, and they ensure that you have time to be with your family, that they provide those sort of benefits to us to ensure that, because they know that you are working hard, being away for several months from your family. So they try to somehow make sure that at some point during the year you could be able to be with your family, because it's not easy.
Yeah, it is true. Talking about the benefits, what are the most favorite thing for you for working where you're working right now?
Well, to me, with my current position, it's just with the partnerships that we do. It's just to me, the benefit is like, first, it's so good to see and meet how Uzbeks and how different organizations here are actually doing their contribution to really make our world sustainable. And these are things that probably people don't realize. For example, we work with the private sector here. Of course, private sector, their main goal is to increase revenue, to increase profit. But behind that, they are doing work that support the work to increase sustainability in our world. And I'm not quite sure if I can mention, because there's a grocery chain, for example, here that we work with. And we know that they tried to reduce their impact on emissions. They have used a refrigeration system that is very low on ozone, almost zero ozone, for example. And that's a contribution that people don't realize, that it's maybe very small, but it contributes. If everyone in this kind of business, for example, would do the same, then it will accumulate and it will have an impact. And seeing these things, to me, that's very rewarding. That's to me, that's very rewarding. And I work a lot in the Aral Sea. Through the work that we do in the Aral Sea Trust Fund within the United Nations, and just seeing the smile from the kids, the people, where the UN was able to provide water. And when we come and visit, because we're new, and not many people would go there and visit them, especially the most rural side. I've been to Taktokupir, which is almost close to Kazakhstan area. And kids, they just run and they're just so happy because someone came to visit them. And to me, that's very rewarding. Just recently in Baku, there was the climate COP, COP29. And we brought two Karakalpak women with us to the COP to share their stories. And when I talked to them, with my broken Russian, of course, when I talked to them, they expressed to me that it was their first time to get out of Karakalpakstan and go to another country. And they're very, very grateful, because they never said, we never imagined that we will be able to go to another country and also to meet all these, high-level people. It's a global stage where head of governments, even the president of Uzbekistan was there. They never thought that those things are possible. They were able to meet an Undersecretary General of the United Nations, based in Geneva. So they were so happy. And to me, this is the rewarding part of the work that we do here. It's touching one life, one community at a time, and hopefully we're bringing change to their lives and to their communities.
Let's move to the next stage of our questions.
Yes.
You've been working to many countries, and of course you've been tackling with the environmental issues and the environmental problems. How those problems differ from country to country, and what are the pressing environmental challenges that are happening here in Uzbekistan?
Okay, in terms of the climate issues, it's one of the most global shared issue amongst us. The difference, for example, working in Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia, many of the countries in Southeast Asia, it's called the Ring of Fire. Ring of Fire meaning they have multiple disasters like earthquake, typhoons that are high intensity typhoons. Those are the things in terms of disasters. That's what they experience in Southeast Asia as part of the changing climate, the impacts of climate change. Here in Uzbekistan, you don't experience typhoon, you don't experience flooding the way they experience in Southeast Asia. But here you have issues in terms of water, because Uzbekistan is in a downstream country and you depend on water from your upstream neighbors. And climate change can impact this, the supply of this water. If it becomes too hot, evaporation rate will be faster, and there might come a point that there will not be enough water to share among the countries. And working in the Middle East, it's a different issue. It's very dry. They don't have supply of fresh water. They desalinate their water. At any rate, they have oil that can help them. But because of it's a desert area, it can get extremely, extremely hot, that it can affect people's health. It can affect people's property. So the problems are different. But the bottom line is all these problems impact the people. And that's why we need to address these problems collectively.
You mentioned about the Central Asia. Have you visited other Central Asian states?
I've been to all except Turkmenistan. So hopefully at some point, but yes, I visited the 3 other neighboring countries.
In terms of the climate change issues, do we have common issues or it differs?
Within the Central Asian countries, I think water is the common denominator of issues here, and that's something that I think
even in the upstream countries?
Yes, they have also to be worried, even though, because now I do not know right now. Previous winter it was colder, there have more ice. But this winter there's less ice, and they depend on this glacier ice. So, and then suddenly if summer becomes very hot, they will melt faster, and that if the supply during winter is not good, then how can you irrigate your agricultural areas? Not talking about water for drinking, but how can you grow food? It's very impossible in the world to grow food without water. All the technologies they're trying to look at technologies now to do that, but still you need water. So I think water is a common denominator, and Central Asian countries are, I think, collectively cooperating to address this issue, because they know that this issue will become a big issue in the future if they don't address it now.
Talking about addressing this issue, I remember I was speaking with one of my colleagues from Kyrgyzstan, and they say there are a lot of water in Kyrgyzstan, but the main problem is the irrigation, the technologies that they use. They're outdated, and that's why they're losing more of it.
Yes, so the efficiency, it's what you call water use efficiency. So they are not being efficient in using their water. So if there's water losses, leakage that they are unable to address, then yes, it's a loss of water that they cannot get back. So that's why technological innovation, it's very important. And here in Uzbekistan, I know that work is being done here, at least in Karakalpakstan. They're introducing some drip irrigation technology within the UN and within our partners as well. So it's being done, but I think to embrace new technology, it's not very easy for people, especially if they're so used to a certain way. So slowly, I think people are trying to be more innovative, but they need to really understand the importance of water.
While reading your biography, I've noticed that you also provide lectures for on the environmental topics. What topics are your most favorite?
So before, in my past career, I used to be a lecturer at the University of Hawaii. I used to teach natural resources and environmental policy. So, but in the context of the United States and the state of Hawaii. So I'm familiar with those kinds of things. However, every now and then I get invited to do a lecture on my dissertation, which is on food security, food self-sufficiency, wherein I did it's very technical and people might not get it right away, but basically stochastic frontier analysis is trying to understand how farmers can produce better in a more efficient way. So for example, more potatoes with less cost. Something like that. That's the easiest way to describe it. But we do economic analysis, economic modeling. I also do spatial econometrics. And that what basically does is that you know, I'm sure you're familiar with GIS, satellite imagery. You combine that with economic information and you'd identify areas. For example, this area is what we call a cold spot or hot spot. This is the area hot spot where we need to focus interventions or investment because they need more support in terms of farming. Lately, I've been invited to do a lecture on the work that I've done within the United Arab Emirates, which is on climate change risk assessment. So I help the United Arab Emirates through the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment develop their climate change risk assessment framework for the energy sector, infrastructure sector, environmental, and the health sector. And so just sharing how we did it there and how we did it with less time and less amount of resources. So those are the things.
Do you still provide those lectures here in Uzbekistan?
Every now and then we have partnerships with universities here for some agricultural universities, some other private universities. So every now and then they will invite me to become a panel or a panel member in a discussion or to just share experiences to their students. So yes.
My last question is reflecting your career and its development. What are the things that you are most proud of?
I think there's a lot of things that myself and our team should be really proud of in the last 5 years. Here in Uzbekistan, we've helped change some of the policies within the government. And I think, to me, the important part is not changing the policy on paper. It's changing, to me, policy means a change in behavior. If, for example, in Karakalpakstan, the work that we do, and this is, to me, this is very, very rewarding. The people has more awareness in terms of the value of water because we were able to provide them with water supply. And to me, this is rewarding because we are able to change their perspective, to change their behavior in terms of their approach towards using water, because we tell them water is precious and you need to make sure that you conserve water, not just because it's available to you that you should overuse it or waste use it. So these things, these are important to me. And when was that? Last August, we went to Muinak, the cemetery of sea. I've been there many times. But last August, before the first time I was there, it's a sea of sand, brown or gray, whatever is the color. Last August, because we also do this saxul afforestation, it was a sea of green.
Was it green?
Green because the bushes, they have started to grow.
So it was within a year, right?
It's not really within a year, but before there's already here and there. But this time, when we went in August, it's greener. And I said, wow, I see now a sea of green, and the sky was blue. It was beautiful. And to me, that's very, very rewarding. Although we made probably some contribution to that. And then the Hukim, of course, explained that the last winter or spring, there were more rain. And that's one reason that it's greener, because they had more rain. So, but at any rate, to see that those saksul are growing, and we made some contribution through our work within the UN to basically identify areas through the expedition done within the project that we have there, to identify areas where they can plant the saksul. To me, that's that's something that not just myself, everyone within the United Nations here should be very, very proud of.
Thank you very much. It was amazing interview.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for watching and joining us on this diplomatic journey. Stay tuned for our next episodes.